the creator of all things. He created the universe and the planet Earth. Nyambi, along with his wife, the goddess Neselele, enjoyed living on Earth. Oh, and Nyambi also created human beings. Kimono was probably the human man who was closest to the god and goddesses, perhaps because he was the first one made. The thing that unnerved Nyambi about Kimono, however, was that everything Nyambi did, Kimono copied him. So if Nyambi would go into the woodworking shop and create something, after he would leave, here comes Kimono, creating something for himself, very close to what Nyambi created. This made Nyambi very nervous, and he complained about Kimono to his wife, to his mother. And Neselele said, "My darling, this is your firstborn son. Though he really wasn't born, but you did create him. So it's only natural. Whatever you do, Kimono's going to do." One day, after Nyambi was in the woodworking shop, and he had created this very fine pole of wood, and he left it on the workshop bench, and then he went on to the iron forge. Kimono came right in, just as he always did, and then he examined that pole closely. "I can do this." And so he did. And then he looked over at the forge, and Nyambi left. And so Kimono went right in there, and he looked on the workbench. What was these things that his father Nyambi had created? They were long and pointy. And then Kimono had an idea. "I bet I could stick this on the end of this wooden pole. And this is very sharp, that end, and I could do things like pick things up from the ground on the end of that point." And that's what Kimono did. Bored a hole on the end of that pole, stuck in that very needle-like piece of iron, and then he left the forge. He went for a walk. And that when the tree idea struck him. He took that pole with that long pointy end and threw it, and lo and behold, it stuck in that tree. And this gave Kimono another idea, because he noticed some elans grazing in the meadow along his left side. So he took that pole, which we know is a spear, and he threw it at the elans, and he killed the elan. And this idea intrigued him, the idea of death. He'd never seen death before. So he picked up his spear, pulled it out of that elan, and he killed the second one. And then he heard his father yelling at him, "Man, what are you doing? You shall not kill your brothers. Stop it!" And so Kimono ran away. A couple of days later, once things had rather toned down, his father approached him and said, "Kimono, I'm going to give you a garden. In this garden, you will grow your vegetables, your fruits, and you will have nut trees, and there will be no need of you to kill animals." And so that's what happened. And Kimono copied his father once again and learned how to build a beautiful garden. He had vegetables, fruit trees, strawberry patch, vineyard, everything. One night, as the sun is going down, buffalo run into Kimono's garden, and they begin to eat all of his vegetables and trample on his strawberry patch. This angers Kimono, so he picks up his spear and he throws it at the buffalo and he kills one. And then he pulls it out of the first buffalo and he kills the second one, and the rest of them run away. He wants to hide these buffaloes from his father, so he drags them away and chops them up and puts them away. He will eat them later. He then builds a fence around his garden. But that night, along come antelopes, and they laugh at Kimono's fence and jump over it, and they too trample in the garden. They eat the grapes from the vineyards and the fruit from the trees. Again, Kimono is angered, and he picks up his spear and starts to kill antelopes. His father catches him. "Kimono, what are you doing? Stop it!" And Kimono ran away. 2 days later, Kimono returns to his home. But when he enters it, he sees that his cooking pot is broken into 100 pieces. And then he notices that his dog is dead. Worse still, his child is dead. Kimono runs to his father's house. But when he enters his courtyard, he sees his cooking pot there. It's not broken. And his dog is there wagging his tail, barking. And his little child comes out of Nyambi's house and says, "Hello, Daddy." And then Kimono apologizes to his father and then says, "Give me medicine, Father, that I won't have to go through this anymore." Nyambi just says, "Huh," and walks away. The next morning, Nyambi calls his counselors together. He has 2 of them. They're rather like psychologists, Jungian psychologists. And they sit down, and then they wait patiently for Nyambi to speak. "Well, here's the thing. I've created this man, and he's no good. He kills the animals, and then he copies me, everything I do." "Well," said the first counselor, "you know he is your son, and since you're inventive, he's going to be inventive." "Yes," said the second counselor. "I think, though, it's time that you moved away from him a little bit." Nyambi that night talked it over with his wife, Neselele. She agreed that it was time for them to move away from Kimono. Where would they go? "Well, this is what I think," said the first counselor. "You should build a house in that island in the middle of the river." And so they did. But the next day, who should show up but Kimono? "How did you get here?" Nyambi says. "Well, my father, I went into the woodworking shop and built a little boat and rowed myself over." The next morning, Nyambi calls the 2 counselors together again. "Well, it's like this," the second counselor said. "You see, Nyambi and Neselele," the first counselor said, "I think that wasn't far away enough, and I think the tallest mountain in the world is where you need to build your home." "I concur." So Nyambi and Neselele packed up their goods again and went to the highest mountain in the world. From that vantage point, Nyambi could see that there were many, many, many human beings on the earth now. This too worried him. But the next day, who should show up? "Kimono! How did you get here?" Nyambi says. "Well, my father, I went into the forge and I made these long pointy things. I call them nails, and I stuck them in the mountain, pounded them in with that hammer, and pulled myself up." The next morning, here come the counselors again. "What am I to do? There are thousands of people on this earth, and Kimono can figure out how to do everything." "Well, it's like this," the first counselor said. "We must remind you again that he is your son, And he knows how to do things because you know how to do things. He thinks like you. And as for all those people on Earth, well, Nyambi, you made sex fun. What did you think would happen? Nyambi just stood there, thinking, what should he do next to get away from all of humanity? I have a suggestion, the first counselor said. I think it's time you went home. Home. He had forgotten about home, that place he had come from before he created the universe and the earth. Oh yes, home, Nyambi. We will have Spider come and build you a web up to heaven, back up to your home. But once she has built that web, you, when you are back home, must burn it so that the humans cannot follow you. And you will have to blind Spider so that she cannot show anybody where you are. Nyambi was rather sad, but he knew the counselors were right. It was time for him and Nefelele to go back home. And so Spider built them a web. They went up the web, they burned it, and then Spider lost her sight. Kimono was devastated that his mother and father, the gods, had left him. And he tried to get all the men together to build a stairway to heaven. But they failed. Their stairwell just dropped. We have no engineers yet, the head builder told Kimono. When we have engineers, we'll figure out a way to get to heaven. That night, Kimono climbed up a hill and watched the sunset. And that's when a new idea popped into the inventive mind of Kimono, the first human. The next morning, he called everyone together. Come and see the sun come up. And they watched. And as they watched, Kimono said, see, that is our father, Nyambi, come to guard us all day long, to stay with us and shine a bright light on us. And that evening, after the sun went down, he called everybody together again, and the moon came up. You see, he said to everyone, there is the moon, our mother, Nefelele. She has come to guard us all night long. And the people were happy with this. And that is how humanity invented religion.